on Zoom. Three, two, one. Hello, everybody. Pete Caliendo, Baseball Outside the Box. Yeah, we are back. We were here yesterday, which was Wednesday. Today's Thursday, 5 p.m. Chicago time. We're in our Chicago studios. Welcome to the show that interviews baseball's best coaching minds who love the challenge of status quo. I'm your host, Pete Caliendo. Glad you could join us. You know, we've had a lot of, we believe in it. We've had a lot of vision programs, mental training. We continue to bring you some of the best in the U.S. and around the world. And we've got a great one for you today. Harvey Ratner, he is the president of Harvey Ratner Sports Vision. He has worked with major league clubs, but all kinds of sports teams all over the place. He's a teacher, a researcher, and a clinician in the field. He's worked with hockey teams, goaltenders. He's worked with Sugar Ray Lenard, Pete Rose. So we're excited about having. He's got a tremendous background. Hey, 45 years in this business. So is this going to be exciting to ask him exactly, you know, when he did start to now, what's changed in the industry? And he has really done an incredible job and worked with a lot of great people. So let's welcome, let's not even waste any time. Let's welcome Harvey Ratner for the first time on Baseball Outside the Box. #1 time. I can't believe it in all these years. Harvey, how you doing?
Fine. Appreciate you having me on. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Well, as I tell all my guests, first of all, it's an honor to have you. And the reason being because you're helping me get the show out more. When people hear the guests that we have and the information that they're able to help coaches with, you know, it just helps the show. So I really appreciate it. I can't thank you enough. And we're going to get rocking and rolling. We got some people online already. Got people on Facebook. It looks like quite a few. Let's just get started. It'd be interesting. I think it'd be important to say, tell us about when you got started, how you got started. And because you admit it, I mean, you're not an optometrist, but yet
Right.
You've been in this business over 45 years.
Right. Well, basically, I started out as a tennis instructor, and I couldn't understand why. It's almost like T-ball. When you drop the ball in front of a student and they hit it, wasn't that hard. Drop, hit, little rhythm. But the further away they got and the more space that was created, it became much more difficult. But I don't know the answer. So I found a Dr. Mort Davis, and like I was talking about you before, he's a heck of a deal. He was one of the finest vision specialists in the country. He actually worked with the Air Force before they were the Air Force, United States Air Force, doing studies on transitioning from props to jets, doing 200 miles an hour up to 3 or 4, and the catastrophic mistakes that were being made. So we made a deal. The deal was, Harvey, give me tennis lessons and I will teach you the visual system. The first thing he showed me was like, and I like to say as a teacher, you should be able to, I didn't know anything. I mean, I'm out there and I think I'm doing a good job, but for people paying me, I really wasn't doing that good a job because I don't know where they were looking or what they were seeing, okay? And in tennis, you get to be 78 feet apart. So transitioning, I'm doing a tennis clinic at George Mason University. Billy Brown comes over to me and the tennis coach said, what are you doing with these guys? They see us doing some things with some rings and charts and everything. He said, I'd like to bring somebody over. Fella comes over, we talk. He said, can I come up to your training center tomorrow? Yes, comes up to my training center and I spend a whole day showing him what I do. Now this is 45 years ago, okay? Oh no, I'm sorry, I'm going back 20 some years ago. The guy calls me the next day, he said, how would you like to be the vision trainer for the California Angels? And I said, sounds good to me. He was I think he was their AA coach. I wish I could remember his name. But Billy Bavasi, he called Billy. He said, I got a guy who's doing stuff that I never heard of and I never saw, went out and spent a season with them and got to meet Joe Maddon. If you meet him for the first time, you know the guy is going to be the manager one day. He's taking notes in meetings. I'm talking about of things we were doing. And the funny thing is, he asked me, I'm coming in as a vision training guy, but he knew my background in tennis. He said, I'd like you to talk a little bit about your hands, because your hands are better than a baseball player's hands. Only for one reason, I keep having to create a home plate no matter where it is. So I spent a whole season, part of a second season, traveling with the Angels minor league clubs getting to know more things that are going on, what's happening, et cetera, et cetera. And that was my introduction. And from there, went to the Orioles. They had heard about it or what I was doing, came to my training center. At the time, they showed up, and I bet some of your old timers would know this fella, Curtis Pride. I was working with Curtis, the only deaf young man, to ever play in the majors. This guy was amazing. I mean, absolutely amazing. And he was released by the Mets, but we worked for 2.5 years, found himself, in the majors. I did some drills with him, and Doug Melvin was there with Reed Nichols. Well, let my guys try it. They tried it. They didn't even come close. Same thing. Next day, come on up. We'd like you to be our vision training guy. We went 2 years with them, and then I moved with Doug when he moved to the Rangers. But along the way, I got to work with Greg Biagini, maybe Reggie, and maybe Martin knows some of these old-timer names, because I'm an old guy, as you can tell. But also, bless his soul, wherever he is, with Rick Down, who just passed away last year. Really great guy. He used to run a clinic in Vegas and invited me out every year. And he and his wife, Jill, did a great job. So went with him. And then from there, I moved on and spent a season with Reggie, probably, with Al Goldis and the Brewers. Mm-hmm. Okay. It was interesting. It was an embarrassing moment for me, but Al asked me to go over his list of coaches. He said, Harvey, you're a teacher. That's why you're here. And this and that. I said, well, okay. So we go over the roster and I pick out who I think. He says, I got the same thing. I only have a couple guys that are teaching. He says, starting tomorrow, you'll be having half-hour sessions with my coaches, teaching them how to teach. I'm going, Al, I'm the new guy here. I mean, I know what I know, but he said, yeah, well, I'm kind of running the show with Chicken, with Fred Stanley, et cetera, et cetera. He says, you're going to teach these guys how to teach. You just can't go through the motions. That we're not getting anywhere. Then I hooked up with Dave Hudgens. I went out to Arizona and did some 3 days of taping with him when he was putting his program together. The one thing I showed him, which he said I've been around, his ball machine was set up so the ball's coming straight out right at you. This was like a no-brainer. And I said, do any of your guys face pitching where it's coming out of the pitcher's belly button? Or what? No. I said, shouldn't you put it at an angle where at least now we're going back a little bit before they had some of the better machines. He went right out, got his guys to get cinder blocks, at least for right hand, and put the pitch up where you'd see it coming in from the proper release point. All along, I'm doing studies at the University of Maryland. I'm a big believer that, yeah, if you want to hit a ball with a toilet plunger, I saw somebody doing that the other day on LinkedIn or something, that's fine. Show me the results. I hooked up with Dr. Brown and the Maryland Human Performance Department, and we did some studies. One study was on the bat itself. Another study was the type of tees to hit off of. And here's a question some of your guys may want to answer. Who invented the baseball bat? Okay. And is it the right utensil to use for hitting a baseball? And the answer is, here's a little bet. You and I'll bet at dinner. If you can bring me a bat with an oval handle, I will take you to dinner. Okay, a pure oval handle. Now, ask Reggie or Mark.
Reggie might have one.
Yeah. Well, if he does, it means he made one.
That's right.
Because I've made a bat, it's called a flat bat or a grip right bat, with the right handle. This study we worked on, just take a broomstick handle and put weight at the end of it, okay, and swing it. It turns over. It rolls over. The weight is turning it over. So now you've got something in your hand and you have to now reteach palm up and palm down, okay? Because the bat physiologically wants to turn over. If Reggie or Mark or golfers also, in the little red book that Harvey Penick wrote, he said, if you want to learn a golf grip, get a yardstick and hold the yardstick this way. That's how you're supposed to hold a golf club. So I say we did extensive studies, and I made this thing called a grip right bat. And where I heard where Dave Hudgens went, oh my God, I don't believe, he had a big kid who had a terrible uppercut. And he was hitting with this plastic flat bat that I made. Dave says, I hear this, oh my God, what happened? He calls me to come up where they were hitting. I was working with some other guys. I can't remember the fellow's name, but one of his kids with this plastic bat with only a ½ inch of striking point hit a ball 340 feet. And Dave couldn't believe his eyes, because you want to work on a swing plane, get a flat bat where you can actually see what, the angle coming into the ball. So I say, and then on tees, here again, and
no, go ahead. You're good.
Okay.
I'll mute it. Go ahead.
Okay. Am I okay?
Yeah, you're fine. Keep going. Sometimes they unmute. Sometimes it gets unmuted. I got to mute somebody. They forget.
When we got into tees, and here again, this is only when I say somebody told me, so I'm not sure, that at Vero Beach a zillion years ago, they said, we're doing soft toss, we're doing this and that. What can we do to hit? Why don't we do what golfers do? One of their maintenance guys went down and got a rubber hose. They found a way to put it on a piece of plywood and put some bricks on it and said, why don't we just hit it off of here? Okay. Now I'm going way back to when, for ATEC and whatever. There again, that's a negative instrument or a negative tool that you're trying to teach a positive, because what you're doing is you're automatically saying, lift me off of here. And you're going to be beating that rubber tee to death until you start making adjustments. Okay. So what I did was I took a piece of rope and I doubled it over and put a piece of PVC so I could put a ball in there and just lower it and stick a ball and hang it. I did this for Augie down in Texas. We put 5 of them in his batting cage, just ropes hanging down with a ball that would release if you hit it. The distance is, and you could go back and ask some of these other coaches, you get an average player and they're swinging and they're just whiffing at this thing. They're just whiffing all over the place instead of coming in my opinion, and proper swing playing. Now, if you think you can hit 40 jacks a year, okay, and you get it with, lift, then you'll make $1 bazillion. But here's a great trivia question. How many home runs did Babe Ruth hit? I mean, how many base hits did Babe Ruth have out of his 714 home runs?
No idea.
And I always ask kids questions this. 2,830. So I ask them, what the heck were all those other hits? Singles and doubles.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can see the hit and you want to go, but hey, hit some ropes, hit some hard ground balls, just, start getting it through there. And you give them that number. It's astounding that, the guy had, that many hits other than home runs. So he was just a good hitter.
Harvey, I'm going to ask you. Now, I saw Reggie grab this bat, so I know he's going to have some questions. I know he's going to be coming through that screen in a minute.
Right.
I do want to ask you, before Reggie jumps in here, just what has changed from the years that you were talking about and some of the training that you're doing to now? What have you seen that, what have you developed that's changed, that's kind of improved upon throughout all the years?
Okay. Well, if Reggie, let me see the top of your bat.
Go ahead, Reggie. I'm going to unmute you.
Okay. Let me just see what the top of your bat, of the bat looks like, because I saw the hand. He's made the proper grip. The difference between what Reggie has, and let me see the top of it, Reg. Just turn it and
The whole bat.
Yeah, okay. He made it so it's the top is a bat. What we did, we cut a hole in ours, and we do a whole series of drills of balls coming in and getting the ball to go through the hole. If we talk later, I'll give you a little YouTube to look at. But he's right on target. That's what a bat. Chris Hoyles, when I was working with him, asked me, because he was using it, he said, boy, I would love to use this. The trouble is that Major League Baseball wanted me to pay them money to get it approved. And I was not in a position to do that. What Reggie has there, the difference is, Reggie, we don't hit with the flat part, we hit on the edge.
That's what I use for this bat. When they designed this 4X bat,
Right.
you have to hit it on this edge right here.
Okay.
And the same with this, because you're talking about a palm up, palm down position.
There you go.
That's what it promotes.
Okay. It's funny we never met, because I used to go to all the shows and yada yada, and that's what we were professing, and we sold a lot of them. We made one out of a heavy duty plastic thing, weighed close to 2 pounds, but that's the one that guys were going yard with, because it was a high density polyethylene, and they come in and just square that thing up. And so guys, I don't work for Reggie. We never met before. This is the real deal.
This is something I actually started with the canoe paddle about 40 years ago.
That's what, except
you're showing the position at the hands and how quickly it could move through the air just by the sound that it makes versus rolling
so
the wrist, hitting the flat side.
So you said you started 4 years ago?
40.
40, yes. So we started on about the same time when I was doing my research. And all the guys I mentioned, the Rick Downs, the Biaginis, the really good guy who, I loved his lower half stuff, Rudy Jaramillo. It's like I was telling you, Pete, I think a good teacher should be a good learner as well. And I learned an amazing amount of stuff from these guys, but in turn, I think, they learn, some things from me, but that's Reggie's spot on with, with that deal.
And I'm curious, because we talk about sports vision, but you also talk about mental training. They kind of work together in some ways. Explain that a little bit.
Okay. Well, we know the eyes are going to take the picture. Okay. And so for goodness sakes, if you're working with a team or an individual, make sure that they visited with their optometrist or ophthalmologist. Sometimes it can be once a year or twice a year, or et cetera, anything like that. But you should get a good eye exam. One of my buddies, this Dr. Shear, works with the Rockies all the time. And he always calls me, we saw this. The one thing that a regular optometrist or ophthalmologist, unless they're set up for it, will not do contrast sensitivity. And that's something, if you go to ask, but just get a regular eye exam to make sure that your eyes are lined up. The little bead and string that you talked about before, I can just hold it up.
Yep.
There again, they can Google or they can call me or anything. I'll tell them where they can get it, because you need 3 things to be me. If, which is not the greatest compliment in the world, but to be me is this bead and string, which is called a 5-dip string. The second is, I designed this years ago. It's a chart that you put on your wall, okay? So this chart is up on your wall, but now you have a small chart like this that you tape to your bat, okay? This is, I don't know whether you know Mike Toomey or not, but Mike and I go back a long time. He was scout with San Francisco and ended up being the assistant to the general manager with Kansas City. Mike's a really good guy. So we had this, but you tape this to your bat, and here's what you're doing. It's called accommodation. You're here, and I'll back up a little bit, but you're kind of, but you're here, and you're looking at your point of contact. And let's say the letter, and I don't want to get stuck in the weeds, on the first chart is an A up here. That's somebody releasing a ball. Now you have to drop your eyes down to another letter down here, okay? So if it's just...
Is the other letter where you're hitting?
Yeah. It like I say, it's pretty simple. All you're doing is moving your eyes from A to a near chart. Now, this is the interesting thing, is that if you're only you have one line that you're doing, anybody can do that. If it's not a 10-line chart, right? Where they get confused, and we did tests with this in studies, is now you ask them to do a line from here, like M, Z, Q, or, you know, in other words, whatever letters pop up. The reason that I got involved with Mike, he was coaching at GW, doing some, assistant coaching. And the guys at George Mason were doing this whole program. And I get a call, said, my name is Mike Toomey. And we just got our brains beat in by George Mason, who we shouldn't lose to. And their catcher got 2 knocks and another base hit. The guy can't hit. So I asked Billy Brown, what's he doing? He said, we hired a vision training guy. Mike called me, says, I got to know what you're doing. And that's, that's how you get into it. Basically, the other thing.
Harvey, before you go on, is there a distance you're putting the chart? Or does it matter?
Well, yeah, no, that's a very good question. The letters that we have on this chart, it's a 20-20, like when you're reading the E, F, O, T, okay. About the 4th line down is your 20-20 line. So that's the one, you're only 20 feet away. And the other chart is just enough. I mean, a red light which should go off. If you can't read that 20-20 line, you better go see your eye doctor.
Yeah, right.
There's a little problem going on.
How about the beads? You showed the beads, but are those something?
Well, the beads come with, and it's really nice, a simple instruction page. And where am I? Okay.
You're there.
Yeah, a very simple. I have drills that we designed that coaches had this in the dugout. So if you're the double deck hitter, you go over to the end of the dugout, grab the beads, and practice watching a moving ball come to you. It's pretty self-explanatory, but when Joe saw this, he said, Joe Maddon, he says, God, he says, these things seem so simple, but this Dr. Brock, he's the one that invented it, but you're actually, the beads are strung out over 10 feet, and you look at a far bead, a middle bead, a near bead, and all you're doing is watching a ball come to you. But here's the thing. If I was saying to you, okay, Pete, let's say it's strung out like this, okay, but it's 10 feet, and I'm asking you to look at, let's say, the green ball, and you're looking, and I say, how many do you see? And you'll say 2. I said, I want you to look at the green ball. I'm looking, but I see 2. You should see 1 where you're looking.
Is that both eyes converging on that?
That's it. That's the whole thing. It's convergence.
So you're training for convergence.
Yeah, hang on. I gotta get rid of this guy.
That's all right. It's a podcast. We can do whatever we want.
Yeah, right. It's that's the whole beauty of it. Here again, and I'm proud of it. I'm 80 years old. I use mine every day. And you know when you should be using it for all your coaches? If you're sitting at your computer for a long period of time, back up for about 10 minutes or so, take out your string, and just spend about a minute getting your eyes readjusted, then go back to your computer. This fella, this Dr. Sheriff, he calls it visual suicide. People sitting in front of computers all day.
Yeah.
Take a few minutes, get your bead and string. As I say, I do it every day. Now, this is the luck of the draw, but I'm 80. I don't wear glasses. I'm never, but I can attribute some of that to doing my eye exercises every day.
And Reggie or anybody else, feel free, ask a question, because I'm going to keep going till I see you kind of raise your hand. Let me know. One of the things you talk about is the eye movements coordinated with the body. Explain that too.
Okay. Well, like I say, the first thing that happens, of course, for all those young guys and the coaches that are working, if they're in the weight room, you better not be doing any trap work, anything involving the neck. Chad Curtis, who played with the Yankees for a few years, started out with the A's when I met him. If they start building up those traps so big, they can't turn their head anymore. You can't turn your head to get here and look up target and get both eyes looking up the target. You're dead in the water. Okay, so if they're going to be, working out, stay away, get away from that football player neck. You can't turn your neck. Okay, you can't get there to be what we call stereo vision, 2 eyes, and seeing the ball come in. So that's go ahead. Oh, you asked me before. I've been getting a lot of calls lately from neurologists. The last one was from Long Island. He works with hockey players. And he heard about that simulator I was telling you about.
Mm-hmm.
Called me, he said, he said, I've worked with stroke patients. I've worked with, other people with, mental problems, disabilities there. He said, what you've made, I can use not only working with my hockey players, but for balance and coordination for people with stroke and things of that nature.
Explain the simulator.
Okay, the simulator, and like I say, if you don't mind me giving a clue, a little ad, it's where they can find it.
Don't worry, that's
if you
good.
want to see the simulator, you can go on YouTube and look at HRA, my initials, HRA, 3D SIM. Okay, HR 3D SIM.
SIM.
It's all one word across. You'll see a chart in my presentation. The chart is a baseball player looking up target, showing him seeing a ball coming to his eyes. Where does it go? Goes to the brain, which has to process the information, then down the spinal cord, hitting all the right synapses and everything. And then either I pull the trigger, or I don't. That's basically, if you're a human being, that's how you work. And in today's times, and we talk about it, there's 1,000 milliseconds in 1 second, okay? Just a good high school kid, he's going to needs 500 milliseconds to hit 84 miles an hour, okay? So now you're getting up into the mid 90s or stuff like that. If somebody hits a baseball from 96 or 97 miles an hour on up, the ball has hit their bat didn't hit the ball. They just picked a spot. I call it not guessing, but saying, okay, this guy's going to throw a fastball. And as soon as he's starting to release, I'm going, because I've got maybe 230 milliseconds. Another clue you talk about, if you blink, you won't see it. When you get up into the low 90s on up, if the pitcher releases and the next thing you know, it's in the catcher's glove, you blinked. Where did I learn no blink response from? 2 guys that were kind of good athletes. One was named Sugar Ray Lenard. I worked with him before the Marvin Hagler fight. And another, this was funny, he's sitting in a hot tub after taking BP, and he's got a bead and string that I gave him. His name was Pete Rose. Because he was interested in, looking at this and all that kind of stuff. What Sugar Ray, for those old timers, he was trained by Angelo Dundee, who traded Muhammad Ali. You know this thing about big eyes? They look like they're taught to do that. Because if a guy is throwing that left hook or something and you're blinking, you don't see it.
Yeah, I was gonna just stop you for a second because I have a question on that. I've seen where if you watch slow motion video, as a ball comes in, I've seen the eyes actually get bigger. Now you're saying you can train for that. So I'd be very interested. I'm sure everybody else would also. Is how do we do that training? What type of training you do? I mean, I had a coach one time, just to give you a little background, in college, tell me, stick a toothpick in my mouth so that way I don't blink. I had no idea, but there's got to be a way to train for this, right?
What they worked on, believe it or not, and what Pete did is, number one, keep a little eye solution in the dugout, and not every minute, but maybe every hour or so, drop your eyes to keep them fluid. Nothing with steroid or anything. There's a bunch of things over the counter, but make sure there's no steroids. But keep your eyes so the dust or anything doesn't come in. And then you physically work on coming and, Pete and Sugar both, just like this, just release, open them up. I had a kid, he's probably not listening, but you remember names, he's with the Orioles, named B.J. Waskus. He had a problem, and it had nothing to do that he could, but he had the big forehead, we're all did, I don't mean he's a Neanderthal guy, big kid, smart, but his eyes, his cheekbones were way up here. So you look at him, you say, holy cow. I said, BJ, if you don't open your eyes as big as you can, you're not seeing the whole ball, okay? Plus, if you're blinking, how the heck are you ever going to hit? So, like I said, I think as a good teacher, I'm a good listener because you listen. Some of the other thing I learned from, well, I'd been doing it for a while, but Pete kind of cemented it. If you ever watch, there was 3 people on the field, which was nice. Larry Starr, a trainer, invited me down. It was Pete taking BP at the end of, a workout, spring training. And he takes a white towel. I did it a different way. And he moves it about 20 feet from the mound. Then you don't move the pitcher toward the plate. You move toward where the guy's throwing from, okay? Well, let's say the guy's only throwing 75 miles an hour because it's BP. You're not going to hit even 75 from 20 feet back, okay? You go back to 30 feet, you got same speed, you got more time. You can do it, like I say, in the millisecond thing. By the time you get back to home plate, which is, and we all know, some of the coaches used to put out these charts with 60 feet, and it takes unless the guy's releasing the ball from behind his head, he's already taken his stride. If it was Tom Seaver, he's probably 52 feet or 50, maybe Reggie would know better than me, but some of these guys, were coming right at you. So you get your numbers, deal with at least a minimum of 55. And so, they start throwing, whatever speed they're throwing, you try to adjust to it. But
so Harvey, just so I understand, I want to make sure this. Pete Rose would take the white towel and put it where?
From just basically moving it closer to the plate.
Yeah, he's moving. Starts out moving 20 feet from the mound.
Okay.
Then he goes back 10 more feet till he's back at the plate. But now, if the guy's only throwing 75 because he's taking BP,
gotcha.
It takes all day. The guy that I did this with constantly, and he did something that when Doug Melvin and Reed saw this at my training center, I had an old tennis ball machine and I put a bunch of red tennis balls in it and white ones. That was the money ball. And we were about maybe at most 25 feet. And I had it jacked up to where the idea was, it was called go and no go. Coaches do it all the time now, but
sure.
At least swing at the white ball. Okay. So Curtis does it. Curtis actually went 10 for 10 and hit 2 of them, which is like, that's Superman. Okay. Their 2 kids tried it right on the spot. That's when they said, duh. Okay. It's called SOR, speed of recognition. How fast. And this is another thing that I started working on some time ago. And here again, Reggie and some of the other coaches can think about it. I teach what I call the funnel effect. Funnel, like you stick a funnel in your car to put your oil in. Think about it. If Reggie was facing Randy Johnson, okay, and this is what I talked to Chris Hoyles about. Randy Johnson's what, 6'9", and he's
6'11".
Yeah, 6', and he's coming kind of over the top, not quite, but I say, okay. Well, he's coming from here. Maddox is a right-hander who was 5'11", maybe 5. Okay. Well, he's coming from here. Okay. Take 2 pieces of yellow rope that are 60 feet long. Start running them from those 2 directions, right? They will come in and converge about 25 or so feet out. What's happening? And when I showed this to some of the guys with Kansas City, they said, oh my gosh, who's looking for the ball out of the guy's hand? Who's looking for numbers on a ball? Yada, yada, yada. You've got to be able to see from 20 or 30 feet in. I never had a batting cage that was longer than 30 feet. When I did it with tennis, here's a great trivia question. Is it harder to hit a 135 mile an hour serve, which is scary in itself, if you ever saw, or 394 mile an hour pitch? Okay. Granted, you have a tennis racket, but your home plate is 13 and a half feet wide by 21 feet deep. It's basically harder to hit the 135 mile an hour serve. Okay. I say, if you ever faced it or saw it, it's just as scary, if not, when I say not scary, as that 92, 93 mile an hour coming at you. And you're trying to defend, where the heck it is. Great story. At the US Open one year, I was up there. Somebody was playing Boris Becker. We're going back again, but he was serving in the 120s. The guy he was facing wasn't even hitting 10% of his serves back. About the third set where he's getting waxed, he actually turned sideways, meaning the guy Becker was playing, like a baseball player, and pointed out to Becker and said, "Can you put one here and give me a chance to hit it?" He was never trained, to hit that. So speed of recognition and timing is what I really work. But this funnel effect for some of the coaches, go out there and take your 2 pieces of rope and bring them in, because here's one coming in from a tangent here, another one from here, and they look different until they come in and converge there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So start learning the funnel. On curveballs and sliders, it was great. These were 3 scouts with the Kansas City. One guy says, "Wait a minute, Scherzer's ball breaks this way," and this is on this simulator that I have. "Yeah, I know, but Kershaw's looks like this, and so-and-so's look." So they're agreeing that they all look different. That Kershaw's doesn't look the same as Strasburg's, or Strasburg's doesn't look the same as Scherzer's, or whatever. So it's great if you could see it every day. If you could see it every day, you could probably hit it. I think, and Reggie could bear me out on this, I think a good hitter is trying to think along with the pitcher, not really guessing, but knowing, I'm facing Kershaw or somebody, whoever, all the great ones he faced. I think I'm looking fastball.
You really are guessing, because Ted Williams always said, if you're not guessing, you're stupid. And what that is, it's, instead of calling it guessing, I refer to it as anticipating. That's a better term, because if you try to guess every pitch along with the pitcher, you're going to be wrong.
Right.
But if there's that anticipation, and because, as you said, the speed of that ball coming in and the milliseconds and time that you have to react to it, there is a point in front of home plate that you actually lose the ball. You no longer see it because it refers to arcs of light.
Right.
That we humanly see is to that point to where you actually lose the ball. And one of the studies that we did with the eyes, it said that the average major league hitter loses the ball about 21 feet out in front of home plate. That the brain is, like you were saying, the ball hits the bat. You're just reacting to that point that the calculations that the brain made.
Yeah, my simulator shows that. In other words, if we set it like 95 miles an hour, and you'll see some guys waiting and waiting, they realize, holy cow, I got to pull the trigger, when this thing is so many feet away, because you, no matter how much bat speed you have, you still have a little bit of time to get it in there. So yeah, I have 3 pictures, and it doesn't matter whether it's baseball or tennis. Serena Williams, Andy, whatever the heck his last name is, the Brit that played, and Djokovic, who's #1 in the world, all these. I show this to people, they can't believe it. They're in a position, almost like a baseball player, to hit the ball, okay, their eyes are 20 feet out or whatever, and the ball is in front of you. You can see where the ball is. So same thing with tennis players. If your brain hasn't done the work early on, that's why I was always not stuck on, but thought, and I say Pete with his 20, 30, 40, whatever, so many feet, and then you have to take your swing into account. But, and you probably talk to a heck of a lot more hitting coaches than I did when you're saying in your meetings, okay, we're facing so-and-so today. Maybe you'll see, a slider on a 2-2 count, things of that nature.
Yeah, and Reggie, I think he was asking a question to you as a hitter also. Did you hear the question? No,
I didn't. I'm sorry. My internet connection is going in and out.
That's all right. No, he was just saying. Harvey was saying, that you know, in your meetings, in your pro meetings, a lot of times you're going over, you know, hitters or pitchers at, you know, and they're going to throw you certain pitches and certain counts, you know, they're creatures of habit. So you're anticipating that, as you were saying that earlier.
Yeah.
Yes, what you're doing, you're looking at the tendencies of that pitcher, and what now with the analytics and the data that's collected, that they're having better information as it relates to what pitchers like to do in certain situations. Well, this is something that we did back in the day, that you kept in your own little book, what pitcher likes to throw in a situation, whether it's with men on base, whatever the score is. For instance, like you might have had like Bob Gibson, he would intentionally pitch around a batter to walk him, in even in tough situations. He said, because I know if I make a mistake with this guy, he can hurt me. I know I can get that guy out that's coming up. So this is information that I would go through with our hitters to provide them with as much intelligence as I possibly could to help them in a particular situation, so that when they stepped in that batter's box, they had a plan. And that part of being a good hitter, have a good plan, get a good pitch to hit, and be quick with the bat.
Right. And that's what we're talking about, is the mental training with the visual training, combining both. Harvey, there was a question, I didn't want to skip it, from Marco earlier. And he was asking the beads,
If we can, let's come back to the tendency thing, because I'll tell you the greatest tendency story that will blow your mind, and Reggie's mind too, as far as, you know, tendencies and pitchers, what they're throwing to a certain hitter, because they know what his tendencies are. When the Orioles saw it, they just went, oh my goodness. So I'll get back to that. But if Marco's got a question.
Yeah, just about the beads, how long they were, I think Marco had asked.
The rope, it's 10 feet long. Marco, if he wants to drop me a note or drop you a note, I'll, you know, just tell you what site to Google where you can buy just those three things that I showed you. Did the colored glasses in the ball? In my batting cage, 70% of what the kids hit was with red, and Joe Maddon did this day one of my presentation, went home and sprayed balls red and green with red and blue with the glasses. You put these glasses on and you have a black background behind you, okay? So you're here and you see a ball coming like this. If someone throws you a blue ball off of a black background, okay, and that eye shuts off, you're going to be looking at a blue ball through a red lens. It'll go black. It'll turn black on you. It should stay blue. The red ones should stay red. I used to have kids in my cage, they would hit. And this was the ultimate drill for me. If a red ball's coming out, hit it to right field. I want you to hit the blue ball to left field and an option ball straight up the middle. You knew the kid lost the ball if you'd see him hit it and he'd look down to see what color it was. As his eyes were converging, that he lost the ball. That with these three pieces, and I will say this, I think without any qualms, you will improve yourself as an instructor and a teacher 50%, because you know what your student is looking at and you know how their eyes are working and how their brain is working. That was a long answer, but yeah, Marco, you can drop me a note or Pete a note, and I'll just, you know, or an email, and I'll tell you where you get those three pieces. In fact, this is the Chris Hoyle story, because it's a dual story. We went up to do 50 kids at a training center he had in New York when he retired. And the parents showed up. We had 3 charts on the wall, 3 sets of glasses. We ran 50 kids through an eye evaluation in under 15 minutes. The parents were ecstatic. Wow, never saw this before at a clinic. And we could tell some of the parents, you might want to take a look at having your eye doctor check this out, okay? So, and then all the drills we did, we got the parents involved. Remember you and I talked that before, Pete?
Mm-hmm. About having the
But
parents involved.
here's your great Reggie. You, I think, weren't you contemporary of Hoyles, or was he when he was with the Orioles? Chris Hoyles caught. He was there when Ripken was there and that crew. And
No, Ripken and all those guys were pretty much getting started near the end of my career.
okay. So great story though. Good catcher, pretty good numbers in a terrible slump. This is like, if you excuse the expressions, this is a great half-ass compliment to me. They said, we've looked at everything else. Let's call Harvey and see what it is. Imagine this. I tape a home plate on a wall, okay? And I have a slide projector, and in a half a second, you can push down and the ball will pop up. You're standing sideways in your stance. You have to identify where the ball was. So the guy comes up, let's say it's just right down the middle, 84 miles an hour, half a second, the guy says, puts his finger, boom, that's where it was. So we're working with Hoyles because they don't know what's wrong and he doesn't know what's wrong. I go to a second slide, which is a 3-ball slide, one down the middle, one kind of in, one here. We get to a 5-ball slide, and this Greg Biagini, who's also passed away, rest his soul. It's imagine a 5-ball home plate, okay? 2 inside, 1 down the middle, and 2 away. 1 up and away, 1 down and away. Okay, everybody with me?
Mm-hmm.
Biagini says, okay, what did you see? I saw 3 pitches. How many? 3. What did you see? I saw down the middle, in, up and in, down and. What about the 2 on the outside third? I don't see those. I didn't see anything there. Dead pull hitter. Where Peter, you were talking about the brain and the neurology aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
This guy had shut his brain off, believe it or not, didn't look for him, and never even saw pitches away. That's what your brain can do for you. So I've got video. He started coming to my house twice a week because I had the cage in my backyard, and we worked and worked and worked. And as we're getting somewhere in the second half of the season, they go up to Cleveland, and he gets 2 jacks in Cleveland. Guess where? Center, right center. Okay. Then they go to the Yankees, and he gets 3 jacks in a 4-game series. So he's got 6. Guess where? Center, right center, 1 in. They bust him in. Where were they pitching Chris Hoyles? Away. They didn't know he'd been working his butt off, okay, on a ball machine. I set up some drills and other things for him to see where that ball was, to train his brain to at least see it if it's coming. But he didn't. And you can talk to a neurologist and they'll validate. I told you that neurologist up in Long Island. He said, Harvey, that's a story that's completely plausible, that the guy's looking middle in, and if that's just where his brain is, he's not even looking at it there. So the only deal I didn't make with Chris, is that his numbers exploded in the second half of the season. I worked with him for another year or so, and we became friendly till he retired. Is that I said, I should have asked him for 1% of his next contract.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I mean, all the guys I worked with, he was a terrific fella, just a really great guy.
Harvey, one of the issues, a lot of times, and I'm sure some hitters have this, and even players in the field, because vision is not just a hitting aspect. It's a outfield, the catchers. Catchers obviously better have pretty good vision. But what about the ability to concentrate for a certain period of time? Does that come from the vision training?
Yes. Well, one of the things we talk about when I had my website is the ability to maintain and concentrate, attention. One of the hardest things I think to do in sports, besides just hitting the baseball, is waiting 40 minutes between at bats. Okay. Now, what I did when we went to Texas, and even with the Brewers, we did it. I had some of the coaches, if you weren't starting that day, or even if, let's say, this was breaking new ground, but let's say you knew you weren't going to hit in that inning unless they just got, on a roll. I would send a guy down to the bullpen, let just one of their pitchers just throw some pitches, and watch another 15 or 20 pitches. You don't swing at them, but just what could be better than that? You know, going, so, you know, here again, maybe some of it's common sense or not, but you get.
No, but what's interesting, Harvey, what's interesting, I know the coaches online can tell you this. It's wild. You know, you talk about that. You're going back quite a bit of time. And now you look, I mean, baseball's kind of been I say archaic, or it's been slow for change. But now I go to Wrigley 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and I'm watching the bullpen being thrown, and guess who's in the bullpen? There's a hitter at home plate. I'm watching a pitcher warming up. Guess who's there? There's a hitter. You know, so you wonder, I mean, something that's simplistic makes so much sense. If there's a pitcher that's warming up before a game, why would there not be a hitter there to kind of simulate the same situation?
Right.
Pete, I did that with the Dodger players, because one of the things that I found, and it's not to sound like I'm being racist or anything, that the Latin American players, especially players coming out of the Dominican Republic, had trouble recognizing breaking pitches and the actual spin on the ball and seeing the position of the hand. So what I would do is something that Ted Williams had us do a long time ago: go and ask a pitcher if you could stand in there and see pitches to help them start to recognize that spin. So that's a very good drill and teaching moment for players that are having trouble recognizing certain types of pitches, especially, and moreover, actually calling where the pitch is in the strike zone, what part of the plate that is actually coming across.
Interesting. Love it. What, you know, and when you mix all this in, Harvey and Reggie too, the technology nowadays, it's helping speed up that process, because there's a whole lot of technology being used in vision. Is it speeding it up, or are we wasting our time with it?
It's always great. If you go to the Air Force Academy and you want to work on tracking, you know, put your head in the machine and boom. I mean, you know, now you're talking about flying planes. But the bat that Reggie made, the only reason that I put a hole in mine, because one of the drills we did, you just go into a bunting stance. But if I'm going to throw wiffle balls at you, the idea is I don't want the person throwing balls playing a basketball. I don't want them aiming for the hole. I want them moving the ball around. So you have to get here. I have kids that in 3 to 4 weeks, they could see a ball coming in. Well, one of the drills I did, it was called a 4-on-1. I would have a kid at home plate, and only 20 feet out would be a kid representing first base, second base, third, and then just a kid catching. So first guy comes up, and here again, I don't have, but you would turn and get your, you know, the hole facing the first baseman, first base, second base, third base, back to first. I got kids that start out, sometimes couldn't even get the throw. After 3 or 4 weeks, they're getting every ball through the hole. And so what I would say to, you know, an eye doctor, somebody you're working on tracking, if I throw this guy a ball and he's getting it through the hole, I think he's tracking it. They said, absolutely. You can't afford to go to the Air Force Academy. You can go somewhere, maybe they can work on, you know, on your tracking skills. But what's better than just, you know, working on, and it works on, you know, you throw a kid a pitch on the inside, you see that chicken wing come up, you can fix that just, you know, where you want it. But that's the only difference between what Reggie did and what I did. And that's why I put the hole in it. There again, you said it's okay to be just a little commercial. We did a YouTube on this bat, and it's if you just YouTube the was it Grip Right? Oh, the MVP flat bat, and you just see some of the drills that we did. Now, Reggie, how old are you now?
75.
Ah, you're a kid. I'm 80. Okay. Rick Down, when I sent him the video. Now, remember, I'm a tennis player, but I got really good hands. Trust me on this. Look at the last ball I hit on that video. It's a wiffle ball, okay? It's a rope, okay? And Rick called me, he said, Harvey, if somebody looks at that video and they're asking this and that, said, shake their hand and be off to the next guy, because they don't know what they're looking at, okay? just squared it up, palm up and palm down. It just had a guy just throw an overhand. It's a green wiffle ball. But now when I hit it, I was 75. I still am challenging any Major League Baseball player. Peter, you still know guys. I still work out every day. And from about 30 feet, 30 to 35, 36 feet, I still go out and work on volley skills. Okay. Just basically volley skills, like almost bunting. And when I told Joe, he said, Harvey, I said, Joe, I'll challenge anyone, and all the way up to your Major League players. He said, Harvey, nobody's going to beat you doing that. He said, because your hands have to be better. Okay, we're already sideways. You're not sideways. You got to take what you get. But that's great to work on speed of recognition.
Harvey, when you're playing tennis, what are you looking at? I know it's going to be the general question, the ball, but what are you looking at to try to pick up that ball off the racket as quick as possible, so then you can anticipate, move your body in the right position?
Well, you know where I'm looking? And this is what I taught with that hoop. When I see a guy hitting a ball when we're volleying, I don't even want to see his point of contact, because I'm still looking there. I'm going to be late. You follow me? I'm still looking at the balls. I try to create a window about 12 to 15 inches in front of his point of contact. That way I got a head start on it. Okay. So there again, it's worked pretty good for me over the years. I still go out and play with the young guys, and they get a little frustrated. In fact, I always have people coming to me and asking me, to do stuff with them. Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask on that, Reggie, hang on just 1 second on that. You said 12 to 15 feet, but I guess my question would be, you said it works for you, but is it because you learned it from others? There was a study behind it. Is better to pick it up at that point, or is it an individual thing?
Well, you know where I learned it, or where here again, doing some studies and being with this Dr. Davis, is that years ago, and this was at the optometrist who thought they were teaching baseball sports vision. It was called a Marsden ball, M-A-R, Dr. Marsden, just a ball hang down, and there was numbers on it. And they'd give you a stick and say, well, come back, try and hit the 3 and try and hit the 4 and try. Man, the last thing in the world I want to be doing, if I'm looking at a 90-mile fastball, as a number on, when you look at a number on a ball, total, and it was Lombardi, got it from Blanton Collier, who got it from some, where we put numbers, and I did this because I did some football stuff. You put the numbers on the nose of a ball. You have a 1 ball, which is, you have the 1, 1, 1, on the nose of the ball. So when it's coming at you and spinning, they wanted the receiver to call out what number it was, because your tendency is to look at the flat part of the thick part of the football, right? It's like the old dropping the dollar and trying to catch the dollar. So if you're looking at the football and you think you can, that's why guys with bad hands, hardly any such thing as that, just bad eyes and bad information. But say Blanton Collier, going back a million years, taught it to Lombardi. Lombardi taught it to a guy when I was doing tennis sports on Channel 7 in DC. The guy, he wasn't much. I never thought much of him. Sonny Jurgensen was pure, nicest guy, and a hell of a, he said he learned that, going out when Lombardi got there, the 1 year he was with the Redskins, putting a number on a ball. What ball is that? The number 4. You know what it's like? It's like watching Joe Louis, for what reason he did it, I'm not sure, but he would watch a record player go around like that. That's when I made the ball, and I said, I don't want to see it spinning this way. I want to see it coming, you said you saw the ball.
Yeah, like this.
Vision ring, yeah, going that way. So, and then I'd rather see it coming at me in 3D than just watching something, just spinning that way. But
Reggie, you had something, question, go ahead. Sorry.
Yes, since he spoke to the congruency of performance and eyesight, the better players, where that congruency existed, what was their average eyesight?
Well,
on a Snellen scale.
You just asked a great question, because my buddy, if I can find it here, sent me a.
That's why Reggie's on there, because I know he's going to have great questions.
Okay, his name is brain freeze. Dr. Charlie Shear in Mishawaka, Indiana. We spent a lot of time together. Is that he was out with not only this year and previous years, he found a majority of the players that he tested were 2012, between 2012 and 2015. Now, that is, you know, looking at those charts, that's clarity from that far out, okay? He also talked about, he did a complete profile of that contrast sensitivity, okay? And the one thing, until maybe when you were playing, but ground and background, I remember Old Griffith Stadium, guys with wearing white shirts out in left field, and you're a hitter, and the ball coming up from there, duh, you know, where the heck is it? That's why a baseball, tennis went to an optic yellow ball. I guess baseball, because it's traditional, the most visible color to the human eye in the color spectrum is yellow.
Yeah.
Okay. But now, when I was working in softball, and I'm going way back, these kids were looking at a white ball with white seam, not even red seams. I don't know who stitched together. Who the hell could hit that? I mean, you know, we talked about it. I said, ladies, you know, and now I don't know whether they all use yellow or some use yellow or don't use yellow or et cetera, et cetera. But here again, if you just want to talk common sense and not, or visual sense, estimate, why isn't the baseball yellow with red seams?
Well, I was just going to, well, first of all, I was just going to add, if we want to increase hitting and make the game more fun, we might as well change the ball to yellow.
Charlie Finley came up with that and proposed that to Major League Baseball back in the 60s, the late 60s, early 70s, when he owned the then Kansas City A's before they moved to Oakland.
Wow.
There he was proposing using a yellow ball, optic yellow ball there, where the players would see it better.
Wow.
But then again, too, the one of the things that they found was that because of the light, the type of lights that they were using at that time,
that's where
you saw more of a shadow in the bottom part of the ball because the light wasn't reflecting off the ground. They didn't have the quality of lights that they have now. So optic yellow would work better now than it.
Oh, absolutely. Well, that's where your contrast sensitivity now becomes a key factor. Yeah, like I say, you can't think of a reason nowadays why the ball shouldn't be optic yellow. I mean, tennis, you know, picked up on it right away when they realized, you know, when I was working with the USTA officials, one of the first things we did, and they were talking about changing the background, you know, the drapes that they put behind the courts. And, you know, I was saying, you can't use a light color, you need something to give you great contrast. Dark blue, yellow looks really, really clean off of, you know, a dark blue court. But for a while, I'm trying to think, it was almost like a light green. You'd have to go way back, you know, but there again, some of it, we'll call it visual sense, you know, not common sense. If they don't know, they just don't know. But Reggie, I can see. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to jump in. I'm probably going to send this video to the commissioner's office after this to see if we can get that changed. But Mark Fuller, been around the game a long time, great baseball coach, has a question.
Well, first of all, I just want to, I'm only 70, so I want to thank you for having the kids on. And Harvey, good to see you. Still one of the best and still use many things that I picked up from you years ago. So we got to get you back to Wisconsin. I used to give a vision test at the beginning of practice each year, and you're exactly right. It was amazing how many kids were able to adjust without good visions. I think on a normal year, I would have 1 to 2 kids that I would move on to an eye doctor. But I think the Hoyles story brings up a very good point, Harvey, because I do believe tracking a moving object isn't necessarily natural to the brain. It's something we need to track. Practice. So without practicing tracking movement, I think we're going to struggle. So I think all those drills that you've talked about, a lot of it is helping our brain get used to tracking a moving object. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, when I started, today's show, and I said 80% of hitting is above the neck. The eyes, Simple enough. The eyes that take a good picture, it gives the brain a chance to process. But now the secret is, how quick can we train somebody to go through that? And then comes in the technical part, which, you can, that's what a good hitting coach can do. He can adjust a swing or fix a swing or whatever. But if you can't do parts 1 and part 2, you can look fantastic off of a tee. You can look fantastic during BP. You can look fantastic at whatever. What was the kid's name? Big, tall. He had a good career. Met him with the Angels and then went with the Rangers. Big, tall lefty, almost like a Williams type thing. But he had a good career. I remember seeing him working out on a tee one day and came in. He asked me some questions and this and that. And I guess it was Doug Melvin asked me, said, the guy has the most gorgeous cut, his swing is perfect. Why can't he hit? I said, he can't hit because he can't process information or fast enough to really be a good hitter. In those days, I'm going way back. I didn't have what I have now. The drill I did with him, I had him close his eyes, okay? And I'd move the tee up and in, down and away somewhere, and I'd say, I call it my RR drill. Relax, bat up on the shoulder, ready, get up into here like you're loading, go, then open. And he whiffed half the time because he was so used to, and not to denigrate, because I believe in tees and I believe they do have a place, but after a while, go to a driving range, if you're a golfer, sometimes it can be misleading because you're getting this beautiful rhythmical swing and it looks good. And the coaches used to ask me, how come he can't hit? Duh. He looks so good. Because what's he practicing? The ball's not moving. Remember we talked about, Pete? We talked about static acuity. The thing ain't moving. Best line in golf and baseball, Ted Williams and Sam Snead are discussing hitting and this and that. And
I know it.
and Williams is saying, yeah, well, I hit, and if I do this, and boot to dip, and I get zipping, and what's his name?
Snead.
Snead is saying, he says, the difference between your game and my game, if you hit a ball foul, it's just a strike. If I hit a foul ball, I got to go in the woods looking for it. But you got two old timers really, really talking about it. And don't forget, one of the reasons that Williams was also a great hitter, he was flying jets for the Marine Corps, but not what they have today. They were going pretty fast. So when I think the story, I could only be half right, but when he got released from the Marine Corps, he showed up to the Red Sox within a couple days, and he was hitting. When they were taking BP somewhere, whatever, and one of the reporters said, Ted, if you were playing today, what do you think you'd hit? He says, 280, 285 or so. He said, 280, 285. Why? He said, well, because I'm 72 years old.
2 years old, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true.
Harvey, I had this question, and we'll continue this. What I wanted to ask was, okay, I was a racquetball player, and one of my questions was going to be, when you take another sport, because, if you're a fighter jet pilot, you better have pretty good vision. I'm sure they train for it. I mean, it's life and death there. So hitting may be a lot easier in some ways to them once they start working on their body movements. My question is, what sports can we match up that would help a hitter, which obviously tennis might be one of those, but also here's the problem. I was a pretty high level racquetball player at an open level. So I saw speeds of really fast speeds and had to make decisions right away, but I couldn't hit with the lick. Okay. But my sport was baseball. Why?
Well, don't forget, and here again, now you can get into technique because you are seeing balls coming at you, different angles, but a lot of stuff that you're doing, is we call slap hitting. Ball gets behind you, you take it off the back wall. So what you were rehearsing, as far as your techniques, didn't match up to what you were doing in baseball. Now, there again, your speed, your SOR your speed of recognition might have been very good as far as seeing the pitch, this and that, but your timing, going back to the analogy I made with your wife, her worst nightmare is you're dancing with her and you have no rhythm. And remember, Reggie can appreciate this. They could just chime in. Does anybody out there remember Buddy Rich, the drummer?
Yeah, I do. I'm a drummer, so I
Well, guess what? So was I ever since I was like 14 years old. The reason I said Buddy Rich, my son was his rehearsal drummer.
Whoa.
Oh yeah. So now you're talking about the Ted Williams of drummers. He came back showing me some things, but that's the rhythmical end. I mean, he heard things other people didn't hear. But going back to Pete, your speed of recognition, not should have been, but probably was excellent. But you're seeing ball from different angles. If you went in, did you ever do any wall ball drills?
What kind of, are you talking about racquetball or baseball?
I'll go back to Sugar Ray Lenard.
And before you say that, I think one thing you hit right on the button was the rhythm part. I had none of that. So you hit that perfectly.
Right. You have to work on it.
It's a fact.
Here's a great story that I helped design. It's those big boards that you see with lights on them, and you punch out the lights. They're called saccadic fixators. And you look at the green light, and the light goes off here, and one goes off there, and well, I take it to this tennis camp that I'm doing. Within 20 minutes, the kids were playing it like it was a computer game. Let's see how many you can punch out in 25 seconds. So I take it over, and this is when I called the company working on, and I take it over to this guy, and this guy is doing this you can really appreciate, and he's going, I'm saying nothing. I mean, just like slow motion. I take it back because when you're doing your research, I take it back to my tennis kids. Bang, bang, bing, bing, boom, 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 boom. Great score. I take it back and I call New York and I said, guys, I'm finding that we live in a three-dimensional world and we're working on a two-dimensional piece of equipment. The guy doing this, that was Sugar Ray Lenard. So I put down, he said, Harvey, he said, Angelo did not train me or Ali he trained me to be here. You throw a punch, and Tyson was saying with D'Amato, you slip the punch. You don't get out there and you don't spend 12 rounds fending off punches, right? You get here, you slip, make the guy pay. You get here. Remember Tyson? Well, Sugar Ray, big eyes and always moving, but not doing this. So I said, okay, these guys want to put this thing on the market for about $3,500. I went and bought, and I will say, I may be one of the first guys that did it. Okay. I went out, I bought Nerf balls, and I had him face a wall in his boxing stance. And I went and just threw the Nerf balls against the wall and had him just doing that, not knocking him down. He said, wait till Angelo sees this. Because Angelo Dundee, a heck of a trainer, and Sugar Ray, nobody ever thought of it. I incorporated that into my baseball drills. If I was working with you, you move 6 feet back away from a wall, okay? You're standing sideways facing the wall. You use wiffle balls, because if you use tennis balls a little bit, and I'd throw the ball, and up in here, boom, boom. And now, I had 10-year-old kids, hitting the ball off the wall, but I then increased it. I said, if I throw you a red ball and you think it's on the outside third, hit it to the red target. If it's a blue ball, hit it to the blue target. If it's a neutral ball, hit it up the middle. Okay. And then you could do situational hitting. Man on second, You throw them, even if the count is, 2 balls and no strikes, you throw them something here. I still like to see that ball hit to the right side. Maybe you can move them over. My wife, she became a real baseball fan. She could never understand when she saw a guy come into a dugout after grounding out that getting high fives. I said, just move that guy into scoring position. Okay. You want to ask, here's another great question to ask. You love this question. And this would be with 15, 16-year-olders. Okay. Would you rather have a career, ask Reggie, where your first at bat, this is 162 games, 4 at bats every game. First at bat, you strike out. Second at bat, you walk. Third at bat, okay, you move a runner over and he scores. The last at bat, only 1 out, tie game, man on third, you hit the screaming fly ball to right center, you get the RBI, game scored. Who here wants that career? Because you're going to the Hall of Fame. Now you explain that to a 16-year-old kid, they know, what are you talking about? I don't have a hit my whole career. I said, yeah, you're going to the Hall of Fame. You more walks than anybody else is ever going to come close to. RBIs is off the chart, okay? You've struck out a heck of a lot of times also. And if your kid could add up 2 and 2, that's a hell of a career. Anybody would, say that. I'm just saying, always like to pose those kind of questions to the young kids who I can hit 320. Yeah, he just took my gift, and he's going to the Hall of Fame.
Harvey, 2 things. One, I wanted to ask Marco. You still there? Marco took off. He had a device. I was going to have him show you. He might show you the device. Turn on your video. While you do that, can we teach the strike zone? Can we get better at understanding the strike zone?
Well, remember I showed you that thing about working with the NFL officials and the UST officials?
Yep.
That's a thing that I would love to see officiating better, only from a standpoint of doing the vision training that the players are doing. We're not asked to hit. We're not asked to do this and that. Is the first strike zone. When I worked with my grandson and his 13 and under travel team, the first thing, and I tell a parent to do this, they're not going to just ask them ask the ump where his strike zone is today. Okay? If the guy says, hey, this is a strike today, you better tell him, if the ball, that's a strike. Maybe you don't like it, it's not. And I remember watching one guy, and he was really good. He was spot on. This is 13 under, but he was consistent, okay? And I'm sure if you ask players that, at least if the guy's consistent, not all over the place. I had a conversation once, and I couldn't help it. Remember I told you, as you get older, Reggie, you'll probably get this way too, all right? But my mother, when she got older, she became unfiltered. Anything that went into her brain came right out. And I try not to do that. You're looking, so I'm talking to, this guy's still umpiring. He said, well, if a guy's up and he's standing here and the count's whatever, but he crouches a little bit, I got to adjust the strike zone. And I'm going, you do what? He said, well, I adjust the strike zone for his stance. I said, wait a minute. The guy's standing up, he come up to the plate, and let's say he's 6'1". You know where his strike zone is based on when he's standing straight. So when he turns over like that, you still know where his strike zone is. Well, this, I said, can we ask you a question? And it was people around. I couldn't resist. Mom, if you're listening, I'm sorry, but I said, if I come up and I get on my knees, or I go into a complete squat, and no, what are you going to use as a basis? Okay, remember Eddie Gwindell? Does anybody go back?
Eddie Gwindell?
Yeah, with Bill Veck.
Yeah.
Nobody could hit his strike zone. So I say the only thing you can hope, well, number one, it's a good, strong union that they have, the same way with the NFL officials, except we found some things that they were amenable to do. The one thing we found with the NFL officials, and they were all good, most of them filled out a questionnaire game. We had 5 officials, and Mike Pereira might have said, you should have heard what Harvey Ratner said. Just the truth, I still got the paper. 5 officials that hadn't been to an eye doctor in 3 years of any kind. What? A $3 billion or $400 billion industry? And the officials were very receptive. They really were. But you gotta, if you got a union and you want this and you want that, but man, I want the best trained, officials in any sport that, well, say that maybe money can buy, but with the USTA, we made some changes. They never wanted to use the word tracking. I couldn't understand that. I said, what do you mean? They would have, if you don't know tennis that much, the people sitting on what's called the service line, they'd be sitting, and a guy would be serving a ball from there, and they'd put their eyes on the service line, hoping that they'd see a ball coming in 120 miles an hour peripherally and see where it bounced. Not gonna work. And I showed them, believe it or not, with the bead and string, why if the guy was looking, or the lady was looking at spot A, because that's all they could look at, one spot, and the ball hit in spot C, they never saw it. We had them turn their head and follow the ball and track it. You can track something 120 miles an hour, unless they blinked. And then you know what they do? They tell them to do. They go like this, meaning I'm unsighted, and they let the chair umpire, make the rule. But I say the NFL officials that I worked with were very, amenable to learning and, things of that nature, but should be, eye exam. Codify the eye exam, because the one thing we told them, if they wanted to train an official, let's say a sideline official, get a little mini trampoline and put up one of these charts that I was talking, and bounce up and down on it, because when they're running, that's what your eyes are doing. You're just bouncing along. So practice for that.
What can you do with baseball umpires? And then I want Marco to show you that product.
Okay. Well, the one thing is the parallax drives me crazy.
Hey, wait. Reggie's laughing. That wasn't supposed to be a joke. I just had 120 umpires on the other day with our international umpires from around the world. So I know Reggie thinks I'm making fun of the umpires, but I'm not. I umpired for 15 years.
Right. Hey, they work hard. They, it's like, I think you know what you know. And I think Reggie would be the first one. At least if I know it's Joe Dokes and he's consistent, I know, but, I've seen games where the same pitch, they called it different. Nobody could understand it. So the one thing, the parallax drives me crazy. And what I mean by that, we did this with the USTA officials, is that when I see an umpire get over the left shoulder of a batter, of the catcher, okay, he's giving up the right side of the plate. The ball,
Slant angle.
yeah, it's just called the parallax, and he's going to miss as much as he gets right. Now, if he's too short and he can't see over, but you're never going to get the best look. Is what we call that stereopsis look, is being right behind the catcher, looking straight there like that. But the minute you turn off, you've created that parallax.
So you're saying right over his head? The catcher's head?
Right, of the catcher's head. Yeah, that's just coming straight at you.
Which means that the lower the catcher is, the better it is, obviously, also for
Absolutely.
the umpire.
Yeah, unless the guy's 6'9" or something, but
right.
I've seen some umpires over exaggerate it and get way over to either the right or the left, depending on who the hitter is, whatever. And like you saw Reggie shaking his head, you can put a ball down even from that close and ask him if it's a ball or a strike. What we did at Madison Square Garden, we took the chair umpires and we put 5 balls on the far sideline, even if you know nothing about tennis, and we put balls down and asked them to tell us which ones were in and which ones are out. And they missed half of them. Because of, as I say,
I want to respond to that, but let Marco go first.
Yeah, go ahead, Marco. Show the product, and then we got about 5 more minutes left.
Got to unmute.
Hang on, I got you. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I got you.
It's okay. I got this, but I use it for the pitching, for the pitcher's standpoint, because I always been told when I was a kid that I gotta look to the home plate always. I don't have to lose sight of the catcher's mitt. So my target, I don't have to lose sight of it. So, but someone told me when I was with Dyers, as I was lefty and Fernando used to be my coach a little bit, that I gotta look up like Fernando, so I was another Fernando. I couldn't do it. I couldn't look up. And I used to like a lot Nolan Ryan, he used to look down. sometimes in one part, when you're throwing, you lose sight of the target, of the home plate or the catcher's glove. But I use this, and I tell the kids to close their eyes, and then to focus on this, and then close their eyes and try to throw the ball and try to hit, obviously, the 100, so they can focus. But in some certain point, they close their eyes or they lose sight. They have like a picture of the home plate of the target. So I don't have to tell them, you gotta look always to the home plate, because sometimes when they're doing their mechanic, they lose sight of the home plate.
Right.
So,
Harvey, is that a good thing?
important.
Well, that's called visualization. In other words, what you're having them do is, believe it or not, if you did it enough, because I've done this before, and in basketball was a no-brainer, you can pitch with your eyes closed.
Yes.
Okay, you really can, because if you understand your body movements and its technique and your release and whatever, you'd be surprised how many strikes you can throw with your eyes closed. I did a study with Morgan Wooten, the all-time winningest basketball coach at DeMatha. I had a kid, and they all did it, but a kid made 12 free throws in a row with his eyes closed. Okay, you can make free throws because, number one, you know where your target is. You're 16 feet back. You know that. You know where your point is. You just get there and movement. They'll just start dropping in like crazy. So yeah, what you got there is, I don't know. It's my opinion that's what you're doing is great, because it's making them visualize and working from forward back to what it feels like to do something.
Okay.
That physiological movement. There was a guy, he was at University of Maryland when I was there, Frank Costello. He was in Madison Square Garden at a track meet, and he said, Harvey, I can tell you, I was sitting there with my earphones on. I'm going way, way back, and I felt myself get up, almost like a spiritual experience, get out of my body, go through the motion, and run and da-da-da-da-da. He cleared 7 feet on his next jump because he saw himself do it. This is important if you're teaching visualization. Very important, because I do it some with video. Does anybody remember who Greg Louganis is?
Yes.
The diver. And he went up and hit his head on the board during a dive, and blood was everywhere. This is really important, because this is what I showed Hoyles, and he loved it. He gets out, and they're interviewing and say, hey, I guess you want to go back and look at that and see what you did wrong. He said, never, ever, ever, ever will I look at that. I'll go look at a good one, okay? Now, when I was doing Chris Hoyles in my backyard, and I did this to all players, I don't want to learn something positive off of a negative image. What I did with Chris, we shot from 4 angles. And I said, Chris, when you get one that feels good to you, let's look at it. We made a continuous loop tape. That means he saw it, da-da-bim, da-da-boom, over. So he saw it for what it looked like from there, from behind, from there and there. So if you're working with your kids, or you're talking, and you have now with the cameras today, the I-11-3, whatever, is shoot, but you have to ask them, this is why I talk about the teacher-coach relation, how did that one feel to you? Because you're doing it. Let's look at it. And if there's an agreement there as a coach and a hitter, then you put that one in the bank and you look at that. And this was mainly all low and away for Hoyles, because I told you, we trained his brain to see it, but now he wanted to see what it looked like. So train with that video. If you're hung up on negative images, I like to think after so many years that I'm a really positive guy. And I used to see coaches say, well, of course you want to know what you're doing wrong, but we'd stop and say, oh, is that the one we're looking for? Is that, yeah, let's see if we can replicate that again. Okay. But remember, the fool's gold, if you're just looking at the same pitch in the same place over and over and over and over again, you can memorize that one. But like Reggie said, I don't want to guess, but I want to kind of, who was it? Was it Pete that did the deal? maybe it was him. Oh yeah, yeah. He was on that show where they talk about adjusting. I talked about this in tennis from day one.
Pete Rose?
Yeah. He said, if I think it's going to be a breaking ball, I'll move up in the box a little bit. If I think it's a fastball, I'll move back a little bit and get a few more milliseconds. If I think the guy's going to bust me in, if I'm not guessing, but I'll move off the plate a few inches. If I think it's going to be away, I'll move up. In tennis, it's so simple. You'll see good tennis players do it all the time. I'm left-handed, but I got a right-hander serving a big hook serve to me. Okay? And he's beating me way out to my right. He's serving this big hook. Well, excuse me, if I don't have the good sense to move, but when do I move? When he tosses the ball up and he's looking there, I can slide over a step or two. Okay? So I'm thinking with him, force him to serve back more down the middle, where now I get my forehand. But tennis players prepare much better than baseball players. If Federer is going to play Djokovic or something, they'll go out and have a workout looking at what they're going to see in that match. Okay? I remember, is Wally Moon way before Reggie?
No, I saw Wally in the moonshots.
Okay. Well, when I was first go around with the Orioles, I'm watching BP. I'm learning. I told you, I like to think I'm a good. I said, I haven't seen anybody step in the batter's box and bunt. Well, we don't bunt. Seriously, I don't know where Wally is today. I said, okay, I'm not a student of the game yet, but I'm going to learn, because why don't we bunt? Okay, be prepared to watch Reggie go like this, everybody. Okay, he said, well, management told me we don't have time. Okay, thank you. Okay, and the guy that bunted on a regular basis was Jesse Barfield. That was a student of the game. Jesse and I worked a lot together. He'd come out with his yellow pad and his clipboard and be making notes and this and that. But the thing that made him saddest is one day we put up a sheet, 7 o'clock, practice with Reggie and Harvey. We're not, we're paying them. They're not paying us. You get to work some vision training. Reggie will talk about this and this and that. This is for all the minor league players in camp. How many signed up?
None.
3.
Oh,
Wow.
geez.
3. It's like, what? So these are things you see and the things you learn that, if you want it, really want it, and you can come out and work with, Jesse and Harvey, why wouldn't you take advantage of that? That's
Absolutely.
can't answer.
One of the things that I did along that line, especially if you were struggling hitting the ball a little bit, was to bunt in practice. I saw just sit there and bunt, because it actually slowed the ball down. You saw it better.
Mm-hmm.
And out of that, you realized that what was going on through nervousness, and you already know that you don't see as well when you're nervous. But when you're hitting and all that's going on, the guys that are, when they're hitting the ball well, the one common denominator, they all say, I'm seeing the ball. And it tends to slow the ball down. And that's what actually bunting the ball do. And it helps you as it relates to your hand-eye coordination.
Absolutely.
Where to place the barrel of the bat in space.
Right. Absolutely. With your bat that you made and my bat, but you'll see it if you look at it on the YouTube. Bunting, power bunt, like Rod Delmonico's power bunt thing, extension of the right, and then full swings. And Reggie, you got to drop me a note and say, Harvey, for an old you-know-what, that last ball you hit's pretty good for a guy that was a tennis player. Pete, before we go, I have to tell one. It's the most important story I'll tell today.
But let me, before we end, can we end with that?
Yes, please let me
I
know.
wanted to mention because you brought up visualization, and I thought it was important that we bring that up. And Marco showed, what he was doing, and the first thought that came to my mind was what he was doing also, because, visualization, look, I had college coaches in high school and also youth coaches tell me, go home and visualize. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, coach. But, it sounds too boring. but this sounds a lot more fun. It sounds like visualization. We've got to make it a little bit more interesting and fun to get young players to do that. I think that's one of those things that the product did there. No?
Keyword fun.
Fun.
Practicing the drums or whatever never was a chore for me because I enjoyed it and it was fun. When I go and practice, play tennis, right now I'm in California because we got caught here with the virus thing, but I'm with my kids, we're safe, but they won't let me on a tennis court. You know what I did? I went out and bought a rebound net. Just to set myself, I put it up, I go out every day and hit, my timing stays on. So when this craziness goes away, but for me, it's like meditation. And for a kid, it's hard to practice by yourself, but I always said the best players I had always had a partner, a practice partner, just with Reggie's device or my bat and some wiffle balls, just boom, 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 I think somebody said to Williams once, "You're the best natural hitter." What he said, "No, I'm not. There's nothing natural about this, man." He said, "It's hard." Okay. It's hard beside hitting it hard and hitting it between the lines. You don't go in the woods and look for it. But I say that's the great thing, if somebody asked me once, and I tell the truth, because I taught tennis for ages, I was on all the speaking engagements. I would rather teach hitting baseball, which I think I know, than tennis. Number one, I'm not out on the court running around, and I can watch the kid work. And the thing I told tennis instructors, if you're working with an advanced student, there is no way you can be out there hitting balls with them at a good pace and giving them a really good lesson, because you can't watch the ball. If they're a good player and you're trying to, hit balls back to them and react to their stuff, you need to be off the side of the court. Serena and Venus went to a coach, Rick Macy, who had 5 million balls in a big basket. He'd stand off the side of the court. Serena would show up, or Venus, and he'd bring out another player to hit with them so he could focus on what they were doing. That's the beauty of being a hitting instructor in baseball. You can really, see and focus, what they're doing. But there again, I'm not too sure, you can see it in BP, you can see this and that. The bottom line comes, if you can improve their timing, because like Reggie knows, the guy's out there to disturb it. That's his sole purpose, is to mess you up with speed, location, and rotation. And you've got so many milliseconds, but we know you can go from the eye to the brain to the body in well under, probably 350 milliseconds is not, unfathomable. But you really, I'm just saying, some of the stuff I teach, some of the stuff Reggie teaches, Mark talked about, it's all there. And you know what? It's not new. I go back to the caveman with a rock and a rabbit jumping across. He keeps throwing the rock, and the rabbit keeps going until he figures out, I got to throw the rock where he's going to be.
Rabbit's going, yeah.
Right. So you can go back that far if you have to.
Well, Harvey, this has been awesome. Close it off with that story you were talking about.
Okay.
Great.
This is for coaches out there. If you're working with kids, I'll say 16 on up. And I do this with some pride. If you remember what your high school picture looked like in your yearbook, you see 20 pictures on a page. And I cut out a picture out of the Washington Post of a picture of that. It's young men and women who were KIA, killed in action, in Afghanistan and the other theater of war over there. And so a kid will come over and he's, "Hey, hang dog, what's going on?" "Oh man, I struck out twice. I made an error." I said, "That's a good day." "What?" I said, "You just had a good day." "Why did I have a good day?" I said, "Look at this." And I always keep it in my wallet. Look, or nearby. "Look at this picture. How old are you?" 17. You're only a year away from joining up. Look at Billy Smith, 19 years old, gone. Look at Bobby Jones, gone. They don't have another day. They can't go home do their homework, have their dinner, and then go out tomorrow and try to be better. I'm doing this clinic for some 8 young men, and 2 of the parents came up with the coach. And I'm doing this because I always end it for that. The father comes up to me and he has his arms around me and he's crying. I knew it's not too hard to figure out the story, okay? He was there. He saw it. He said, Harvey, he said, I wish that everybody, at least for the older kids, minor league, wherever they could hear that story, because there's a million guys teaching, psychology of this and this and this and that. He said, but in 3 minutes, you've summed it up. You can do it tomorrow. You can go out and you can, listen to the iPods and this and you look at all the videos or go practice, go out another day and, do stuff. There's a way even hitting balls off a wall. One way to make a ball come back to you if you want to just try and hit it with a stick or something. If you throw a ball, make it hit off the ground first, it'll bounce off the wall. If you a tennis ball, you can do that. This just was it Brooks Robinson told me he used to walk to school as a kid, and if he saw a pebble, he carried a broomstick, small broomstick handle with him, and he'd pick it up and just on the way to school be hitting that. But if you get kids and they're, they say, hey, tomorrow's another day and you get to have another day. And the pictures are important because that resonates when they can look at those faces. And I always end with that, which I'm glad you let me, because it should be so important, to the teachers, the parents, and the coaches. How blessed are we that Johnny can go out tomorrow and maybe get a base hit tomorrow, and work a little harder or whatever. That's, as I think I told you, we were talking before, that's my whole being, what I've made my life about, being a teacher and watching young people. Plus when you're at a private country club and you get some of the ladies who, want to play, but some of the best students I ever had were, when I say middle-aged, whatever, who just wanted to get better. They were out there to have fun, but you can go and I'm not sure you want to, beat it to death, but next time you're talking to the kids or even the parents, you're so lucky. You are so lucky to have the Peter Caliendros of the world, to the Reggie Smiths, to the Mark Fullers, or whoever you're working with. But I wish more coaches would impart that to these kids, okay? And just make them want to be better and see what happens.
Absolutely. Love it, love it, love it. Reggie or Mark, anything last minute?
Real quick,
Yep.
I'd like him to explain the importance of, he talked about contrast sensitivity and the effects on depth perception, which you really need to be a good hitter, or to hit any moving object.
Oh, well, I got this email from my buddy today, and he said that it's overlooked. Now, maybe it's hard to do at a high school level if you don't have it, or find a behavioral ophthalmologist. In fact, you can go online and you'll get some contrast sensitivity, Google, and you'll get something to give you a little idea. But contrast sensitivity and glare recovery, especially if you're playing high school ball, because you're playing more day games, maybe a few under the lights, but we've had kids that could hit during the day and couldn't hit a snot at night, or sometimes vice versa. It just depends, on their visual system. But yeah, Reggie, you're 100% right. Contrast sensitivity is super important, and find that visual specialist, that can, that can give you a battery of tests on it. But you're right. It's absolutely, it's funny that he sent this to me today, just, stuff to talk about and think about.
So you have to identify it and then train it, or have it checked? Or have
Well, at least where it is, where their contrast sensitivity is. Now, the extent of the training might have to do with, there again, sunglasses, lighting, all the peripheral things, that have to do with contrast sensitivity. But like I say, I could be, I haven't done it in a while, but I think if you went online and looked for contrast sensitivity tests, some of them would pop up.
So if you look in the big leagues nowadays, you see guys that are wearing like different type of glasses at night during it.
Yeah.
So it's good to identify, because if you have a player who has issues at night, you don't want to put that player in unless he's wearing some type of glasses.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I say that's where the new technology has really come in, and it could be a shade or two different. You know, it could be shooter's yellow is great if they're playing in an overcast day. Okay, because that's what shooter's yellow just highlights everything. You know, it's hazy, it's gray, there is no sun or anything. I've got like 3 different pair of glasses, you know, that I wear. I wear sunglasses to play for one very important reason, that I don't want cataracts, and thank goodness I don't have, and I don't want a pterygium, another word. A pterygium is a callus that can grow on the right part of your eye. Okay, and sometimes you can look at somebody and you can see there's one there, and it's okay if it's way off, but if it's starting to grow toward your eyeball, your iris or your pupil, you're probably going to get it, removed. But, anything, that's why it's so important for the parent to understand, how important it is, or the coaching staff. Most ball clubs now have a vision care specialist. Some of them, unless they played ball, they try to maybe intercede, oh, he's not hitting because of this, this, and this. And that would have nothing to do. I had somebody ask me once, if I do your program, will my batting average go up? I said, no, it may go down. Well, what are you talking about? I said, Cal Ripken, Billy Ripken syndrome. What does that mean? You do my system, you're going to hit the ball more often and you're going to hit it hard. Billy Ripken comes up and hits a flare, drops in for a base hit. He's 1 for 1. Cal hits a rope that Soto makes a running, diving, spinning, over the hand, through the wall catch. Who would you rather have up every day? So don't let the numbers sometimes fool you. I always told people in all the literature that we will give you the opportunity to have a quality at bat, or better quality at bat. But if you don't put the 3 things together, the mental, the visual, and the physical, I'm not sure that's going to happen.
All right. We got anything else, guys?
I was going to say, I think one of the most powerful statements is exactly what Harvey just said. If you're not strong in the visual, you won't be strong in the mental and physical. And to me, that accentuates the importance
They're all
of
interconnected.
baseball.
Yeah. And it keeps going right back to the brain, the vision, man. I mean, it just keeps going back to that. Harvey, can't thank you enough, man. This was, I've heard about you for a long time. I've never met you. This was outstanding, and can't thank you enough. That was fantastic.
Did anybody say anything nice? Because I'll get my wife in here. She might be able to at least one little nugget. But no, this has been a pleasure and a joy for me to be with Reggie and Mark and Marco, and of course you. And maybe we can talk later about if you would. I don't know how many guest appearances you, but I'm doing a webinar in September. Real quick, we talk about it. The text of it, the theme is become a student of the game. That's the parent, the coach, the player. My leadoff speaker, you say, oh, must be Cal Ripken or this and that, is the former president and chancellor of the University of Maryland and The Ohio State. So I always have to say his name is Dr. William Kerwin. And we've talked about education and sports. He's a heck of a good tennis player too, but he said, Harvey, that's a great theme. And we have 5 speakers. I'll send you some of the information, but that's where I come from and where you do too. But like I told you, just not blowing smoke. When I turned on and I saw that drill you were doing with those people, I said, this guy gets it. I hope some of the coaches that you showed it to got it, because the kids would be out there at least, going through the movement and the motions.
And I appreciate that, Harvey. That was nice words. But all of us are here. A lot of us are going around the world trying to assist coaches in any way we can. We try to share the information that we gather from everybody in different parts of the world and the US, and just try to share it. And hopefully everybody can get better a little bit at a time. What we will do is we will forward. We got a lot of people on Facebook and I see on Twitter. We'll forward when you get me the information on a seminar, we'll forward to everybody. I'll forward your email to everybody that's been on Zoom and Facebook and all that. And then we'll get your information out to everybody so they can also contact you.
That'd be great. And thank Mark and Reggie and Marco. Reggie, you made a good bat there, buddy.
Thank you.
Hey, Reggie just didn't make a good bat. He made a great hitter too, as a switch hitter. All those home runs.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And I think 287 batting average and a fantastic, a Hall of Famer in my opinion. If you look at the numbers.
Right. And Mark, good. I get guys that call me and say, "Boy, good to catch up with you again." And you say, "Okay, you did 10." But I think I remember. Mark and I either talking or exchanging some ideas or something, but it's great.
And you spoke at our clinic in Wisconsin a number of years ago, Harvey.
Okay.
And, of course, we've seen you at the National also at times. So,
right.
Yeah. Great stuff. It was a great night of talking baseball.
Great. Thank you.
All right, folks, hang tight, Harvey. Don't go anywhere because we're not going to hang up. Let me just close and then we can stay on. Hang tight.
Okay.
1 second. I want to thank Harvey. Again, Harvey Ratner, thank you so much. Thank you to the Lineup Media Group with Brian Kroc, our producer. Thank you to everybody, as usual, in the U.S. and around the world. Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. We just ask one thing. You do us a favor. If you like the shows, please forward them to everybody you know in the game at all different levels. Have them join the show, and we'll stay in touch with them. So, again, special thanks to everybody. We'll see you on next Monday. It's, Monday show. We'll have the information out. Thank you. This is Pete Caliendo, your host of Baseball Outside the Box. See you on Monday.